probably all of it, but anyway. So good morning, it's Wednesday. Happy day, hump day. Can all get through? All right, so we're talking today even more. I forgot to put the agenda up here. Actually, I had to make 3 trips to my car this morning for something. So I've got here in plenty of time, but 3 trips to Roberts Academy parking lot and back to get things. So I was a little warm when I got in here, but I'll fix it as we're going along. So the first thing we're really going to do, let me explain this. We're going to continue to work on talking about differentiation, meeting the needs of every student, because you need to incorporate this into your content activities. All right, how are you going to plan to meet the needs of every student? So today and Friday, we're going to be talking about that, along with the fact, and it's all built in this evidence-based instruction. In order to meet the needs of every student, your instruction cannot be haphazard. It can't be something you find off of Pinterest and you hope it works. It has to be evidence-based. And in fact, there are many states that actually mandate that teachers use evidence-based or research-based instruction. So that's what the chapter that you read actually talked about, was evidence-based instruction. So we're going to talk about that today. But first, we're going to review a little bit about what you read in the video. I thought we would do it through a Kahoot this morning. So get something out that you can actually use for the Kahoot, either your phone or your computer, whatever works for you. And this music is probably going to be really loud, so I'm going to finish that. Oh, I have to sign in. There we go. There's like 4 of them going on at the same time. Okay. Come on. There we go. All right, so we're going to do the classic version. So it's on When Did It Matter, Chapter 1, and the Case for Evidence-Based Teaching video that was on our Canvas chapter. So they're loading the game pin, and then you can sign in. There it is. There's the great music that we all have come to know and love. So I'm using this today, this Kahoot, as kind of a formative assessment for me. It's not a grade for you. But I want it to also be a self-assessment for you on maybe the time that you're spending preparing for what we're doing in class. So this is that checkpoint for you to help you know, hey, I did pretty good on that, so I must be doing something right, or you might want to make some adjustments in your interaction with the content. So I got 2 more people to hop on here.
I'm trying, it's just not loading.
Do you want to try your phone? Would that be easier?
That's what I tried first. My computer's like getting it up right now.
Okay. There's Jake. Who else is having trouble? I'm getting it right now. Okay. There we go. We got this, we got 19. Okay. We are going to start. I'll stay out of your way. So evidence-based means that reliable and valid evidence indicates that the instruction or program works for many students. True or false? So remember that there's really no guarantees in life for student learning. There's too many variables. But evidence-based means it has been tested. There's research behind it and not biased research. So not a reading company that does its own research saying how good their program is, but somebody else outside doing the research on real students and then collecting that evidence over time to say, hey, this really does work. Okay, so let's go next. And here's our standings, there's our top 5. And you can kind of see where you are. All right, here we go. Question 2, it's still true and false. According to the video, there is evidence showing that small class sizes are best for learning. The answer is false. So, were some of you surprised by that when you watched it? Tell me what he said about that. Does anyone remember?
And I remember he said it was controversial.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, he had a lot of points. I remember it was on a slide with other points that are often debated in education.
Yes. And because there's no, what we call empirical evidence. There hasn't been a long-term study on real students to show that smaller class sizes are actually more beneficial than larger class sizes. Now, we assume, good practice, a teacher can get to more students if there's smaller class sizes. But as far as the evidence goes, it's just not there. Interesting, huh? All that money being put into small class sizes. We want small class sizes because, again, we can help our students more. But the research doesn't really point to that right now. Right? Clear stayed at the top. Okay, here we go. When a student is a visual learner, it should say, there is evidence that visual teaching is best. False. So maybe, this is the formative assessment I'm getting, there's some of you that didn't watch the video. So remember to go back and do that. This is it tells me that story, and I'm not gonna ask you who did it and who didn't, but you're gonna need to go back and watch that, it's very important. So no, there's not evidence that it's best, okay? That's their preference, visual learning. So you want to use that, but if you only use that visual learning all the time, you are actually limiting the growth, the intellectual growth of that particular child. So you have to use multiple ways in order to teach them, including visual, but you can't, that's not the best way, meaning that's not the only way. All right? Let's see. Claire has the highest streak of 3. Good girl, Claire. Okay, here we go. True or false again. Evidence-based research on effective strategies are readily available for teachers. And the answer to that is false. So you have that at your fingertips right now, because you have access to the RU Library database. And you can pull up, by putting in the database, any research study that has been peer-reviewed and published. So empirical means it's been tested by students, basically, or by whoever the subjects are, the participants. And it's followed certain methods, so reliable methods. You have access to that now, but when you leave Florida Southern and you're not in school anywhere, you don't have access to that anymore. So, relying on your textbooks, sometimes you have to rely on, God forbid, publishing companies to tell you whether or not their particular, like Florida Wonders that the teachers just got. I haven't looked at it yet. I need to look at what they're going to say that they've done research on it and there's evidence that actually shows that using their program is going to make a student, learn to read. But I wanna know, did an outside person do that or someone within your company? Because if it's someone within your company, they have an interest in that. Think about it. They have an interest. They're not going to publish anything negative about it. So that would mean that there's not real evidence to support that. Teachers don't know that. And a lot of times we rely on people telling us that when in actuality, you gotta find out things for yourself. So it's getting better, but that research isn't readily accessible to you. All right. Let's see where we are. Good. Okay, next question. What website is available for teachers and administrators to access if a program or strategy is effective? So if you're in the classroom, where could you go that would tell you whether or not something is effective? The answer is What Works Clearinghouse. It was in chapter 1 of Wendling and Mather. You need to know that because it will actually go in, and you don't have to read all the studies. It'll tell you, like, in a nutshell, what is this? What's the evidence? Yes, they did it right, and yes, this really works with kids, or no, there's no real evidence that this does. It's called What Works Clearinghouse. Okay, next one. What are the primary reasons for the focus on evidence-based instruction? Good, majority of you got that. It is No Child Left Behind, which came out in 2000, and then the IDEA, which is the Individuals Disability Act, from 2002, I think it was. Annika and I were just having a conversation about that. So she said she went into Becker for a meeting and their elevator was turned off. So she had to climb up the stairs, okay? So her opportunity to get to her meeting was limited. So unless she comes early enough, and then she gets there and she's tired, and all these things. So let's think about learning. So the IDEA, or Individuals Disability Act, also includes students with learning disabilities, physical disabilities, those IEPs, and then we've extended a little bit of that to 504s. But that actually states that students need to have accessibility to what is being learned. And so, in order for that to happen, we have to have evidence-based instruction. It can't be some haphazard thing. It has to be something that we know is proven and works. So that's where that came from. No Child Left Behind was basic. Now it's Every Student Succeeds Act, so it's the ESSA. But, which reminds me of the thing that DeSantis did yesterday. Did you all hear about this? So this is the last year for FSA. I'm a big fan of that, okay? I don't want to get too excited till I know what's taking its place. So they said they're going to do progress monitoring beginning of the year, middle of the year, end of the year type thing. The reason why that's better, in my opinion, is it's relying on growth of a child and it's not based upon one assessment. So that's good. But again, we just don't know enough about it to get really excited yet until we find out. I think it's a move in the right direction, so that he said there will be less time, there's less high stakes on this progress monitoring, which means teachers won't feel the pressure to what he called like teach to the test, which I never really did anyway. It was kind of like when I was working with Elizabeth this week, I didn't know what the questions were gonna be. I just knew the area that we needed to focus on. So it was pedagogy. Well, it's the same way with you in the classroom. You get data, and you know that a child is low in fluency. You don't know what article they're gonna have to read on the test, you don't know any of that, but you know to focus on fluency. I don't think that's teaching to the test. I think that is finding the gaps in students' learning and filling them, okay? So those things have led to, I would venture to say close to all 50 states, passing in their, because states govern their own education, passing in their law that evidence-based instruction must be used. Okay, so that's what got us there. Claire, you're just not budging from the top. Poor Jenny, she has come straight up there. Claire is rocking it there. Okay, here we go. 7 out of 10, true or false? Use of an evidence-based instructional program ensures success for all students. So this is kind of a trick question. You want to think that it does, but you can use an evidence-based, instruction strategies and the teacher still not be in tune to what the student needs. The teacher makes the difference, that's number one. Also, you can't predict that every student is going to get it to understand. There are varying pieces that are a part of everyone's input into their brain and how they can tell you what they learn. We want that number to be as high as possible. If it's 100%, we do a shout. If it's 99%, we do a shout. We get it as high as possible. But just like we can't guarantee that no one, that none of us will drive out of here and get in a car accident. You can't guarantee that. There are too many factors that we don't know. And that's the same with this. But we do the evidence-based instruction to get those numbers as high as they can be. All right. Well, Allison, Sarah's been hanging in there. Monica's now there. Julia's the highest climber now that you got your phone to work, huh?
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Which of the following are not characteristics of effective teachers? Yay! You guys knew that. Probably without reading, you probably knew that, so good job. Okay. Let's see if we budge, Jenny. Oh, Monica must have been just a bit faster on the trigger there. 7, Claire's just at the answer streak of 3. Good deal. Question 9, which type of instruction leaves nothing to chance? Good job. Explicit instruction. So instruction is not directions for an assignment. Never. Instruction is explanation, detailed explanation, and modeling of what it looks like. And sometimes modeling what it doesn't look like or sound like. Explicit instruction is one of the key pieces to effective instruction. We know that. All right, and last question. Oh, Claire, just one. Jenny's probably a little faster there. All right, here we go. I'm nervous for you. Okay, 10 out of 10. What is the primary self-monitoring strategy? Good job, self-questioning. So when you're reading something or listening to something that you know, do I really understand this? What is this about? Who is this person? All those things where you have to go back and you reread again. I mean, really, I have to do that even with a Netflix show that I watch. Sometimes my mind wanders and something happens like, what happened? I don't understand. You guys do that? You rewind and you watch that part again. because I self-question, do I really understand what's going on? And that has to be taught. That's a monitoring strategy that you teach students. And so this was the opportunity for me, and I'm gonna get to the winners in a minute, for you to self-question, am I spending enough time digesting the information of the chapter, or whatever resources that I put on Canvas for you? So for this particular day, I put a reading, there was a chapter reading and a video for you to watch. And so it was self-questioning that. Am I spending enough time doing that? But let's go to our podium. Sarah, woo-hoo! Claire, and Jimmy, yay! All right, so again, you all runners up, it didn't leave you out, Annika and Allison. So, self-question yourself, look at that, 60, let players improve results. So 62% of our questions overall were correct. That's low. Think about that. That's a D. So that's telling me that you may need to dig a little bit deeper in that material, and hopefully what it also is telling me is as we go over this material, I'm using this formative assessment to help me today as we go forward. So it was almost like a pre-test for me to know as we dig deep into these, how deep do I need to go? What adjustments do I need to make in my instruction? Okay? All right, so that was it for that. So let's go back to, there we go. Let's go back to our Living Matter, chapter 1. Okay. So our goals basically for Wednesday and Friday, and I put it for both days because I really don't know how far we're going to get today. It really depends on how much we need to dig into evidence-based instruction. I'm gonna try and dim those front lights, maybe. Yeah, let's see if that helps me. All right, so we're ready to move onward. Universal Design for Learning, I'm excited for that as we get there. All right, so we did the Kahoot quiz. What do you remember? We figured that out. So now, I want you to think for 1 minute about your takeaways from the reading and the video. And then, after I time you for 1 minute, so we're gonna have that think time, we're gonna do that think group share, not necessarily think peer share. Then I want you to share 2, should say, takeaways that you connected with. Okay? So think for 1 minute. Go. Okay, I literally counted to 60 so that I would be able to do that. All right, so in a minute, if you think about it, it's a pretty long time when you're thinking about those things. All right, so now I want you to share in your groups. We're gonna take about 4 minutes to do that. I'll set my timer and make sure that everyone shares. Now, as you share, there can be discussion that goes on. So if you have that same takeaway, build on what someone else says so that there's actually meaningful discussion. All right, you may begin.
In the field, here, like it's important that we raise stuff here, but it's also important to be able to put young people, because we're gonna be teachers for like 30 years, and a lot has changed in 30 years. Right now, it's all in it does feel constant, like, for too much information, so when you enter the data, it's like, you feel overloaded, you're drowning in all that. So, I think that's, if they talk about it, you have one article, I found it in the
Yes. But what works clearing house with Jackie, you can have access to questions for you to put in there. But to read it, very time consuming, and I love that we have like that. In short, this is what it's about. Sorry.
So it's like, but then teachers are like, oh, I want to learn how to learn best. So that like, I can have really not good. You don't, now we all do, because we all learn different strategies. Well, not all, but you don't want to because,
it also is motivation. But some teachers have stuff, and they have, so then their expectations go low, instead of setting their expectations high. You would be texting them at night, or tell them that they passed, and they send you cute little gifts. That say congrats. That's good. All right, let me bring you back. So, yeah. So now we're going to come up to with a group consensus. What one thing from the chapter, we're going to go specifically to the chapter of Winley and Mather, does your group agree on that you believe all teachers should know? And we're going to share these, but I'll let you talk about it. So now that you've talked about all of your takeaways, we've kind of debriefed a little bit with the Kahoot and everything there. I want you to come to a consensus on one thing, one piece of learning from that chapter that you think all teachers should know. Okay, so I'm going to give you another 2 minutes to come up with that. Go.
I think what you said about all the specific.
I would just think that And something else might help.
And how you said too, that was talking about regulation and stuff and how like the type of always be like a towel, so if they got
Something English with, like they're not
multiple.
you're like this much extra. Like you want them to be all. It's okay if they're not, oh, you're less than out there, they're writing, like, okay, so don't think about that.
What is that? Like rubber comes on top, that's like what?
The one that like your side feels normal to you.
You got your, just one. So as you're preparing for this, just one person from your group needs to join this. So you just pick who's gonna join it, and then as soon as you join, you can go ahead and type what your group consensus is, so that we can all see them.
It's similar.
So if you've not, if one person has not yet signed in, go ahead and do that. And I'm gonna put you on the right slide.
I feel like it's just like, if you're a lefty, are you a lefty or a right? That's weird. I find that so it's like you watch like the parent do a certain way, right?
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and show the responses, and your group is going to just talk a little bit about what that response means. In just a moment, I'll give, here, you see that they're coming up. It's getting it in real time here. So I should have 5 responses eventually. I see 4 up here. Is there a group that can't get their response up here? So, group 1 is your response up here? Group 2? What? Group 2 is your response up here? Group 3 is yours? Group 4 is coming, okay, group 5. All right, so let's start with the top one. So, what group put that? Okay, so expand upon that.
So, basically, if you allow students to experience success, they're gonna, it'll build their confidence, and they'll be more likely to be successful, like, in other tasks. And so that's really important in the classroom because you want students to feel confident in their abilities and in their learning. So you have to differentiate to allow all of your students to experience that success so that they continue to be successful and enjoy school and not like dread coming to school because they think they're just gonna be, like fail and like feel stupid every day.
That's good. So making students feel successful is very important. Let me just play the devil's advocate for a moment. What is the reverse of that? So let's say you have a couple of students that you feel like it's very important that they feel successful all the time. What problem may that bring? Jenny?
They might be a little too self-confident to the point of like arrogance in their work.
I don't know that would happen in first grade. I
Oh,
mean,
I was thinking a higher grade.
yeah. Elizabeth?
Maybe they just feel like the pressure, I guess, of like having to succeed all the time. Just, I don't know. I feel like that would give me anxiety if someone's
It might.
thinking that, like, I guess.
Sarah?
Other students would get jealous.
Well, I'm not thinking of any of those things, but perhaps.
If you're constantly getting everything right, and then you get something wrong, it like really like brings you down. If you're so used to getting right.
That could be a very big thing, growth mindset. Okay, that isn't even what I was thinking about, that's huge. Growth mindset is huge, because if you're constantly getting everything right, you get it in your mind, and it might be the arrogance, it might be other people looking and it could be that you don't realize that, hey, it's okay to make a mistake because I can improve from that. Okay, what else? Let's see if we can get to what I'm thinking.
If a student's always being successful and getting everything right, that's a good thing, but it also, I feel like there's a lot of value in learning from your mistakes, and so if they're not making any mistakes very often, I feel like they're not like reaching their full potential.
So I think that's closer to where I was thinking. So some teachers fall into the trap of having low expectations for certain students so that they can be successful, but they're successful at this level, not at this level. We always want to have high expectations for our students. You know, yes, we want them to have some sort of success every day, but like many of you said, the learning takes place in what you don't know. So now there's some big words out there for you that we don't really, talk about this with younger students. So there's such thing as what's called disequilibrium. Disequilibrium is the point where you feel uncomfortable. So Elizabeth, you experienced this yesterday. You feel uncomfortable because you feel like you don't know something. So it drives you, actually your studying did this, it drives you to put the effort into it so that you can experience the equilibrium feeling of, I got this. But you won't be able to have that feeling and grow if you don't ever experience the disequilibrium. That, oh my gosh, I don't know this, I need to learn it, okay? So we have to challenge our students. All right, let's go to this next one, good. Evidence-based instruction will not work with all your students. Many variables will play a role in if they are successful, including the teacher. What group put that? All right, expand upon that.
So basically, we just talked about how important it is for you as a teacher to understand that no matter what you do, some students are not going to be able to fully grasp the content that you're teaching to them. So it's important to understand that you have to utilize these techniques, such as like the evidence-based instruction and just different types of instructional methods. But it's also important for you to realize that you can't put as much pressure on yourself. Just so you know that.
Well, you have to put pressure on yourself.
Right.
You are the number one factor that makes a difference for the child. I'm going to give you a story. It's a bad story. But I was on the leadership team at my school. I was on the leadership team at my school. And one year, various teachers got displaced out of failing schools. and they got like split up, and several schools got a couple of those teachers. And a couple were just, they needed to be in a place where, they got a little bit more guidance and mentorship and things like that. And a couple of them really struggled as teachers. They just, didn't have what it takes to be that great teacher, and weren't really pursuing to make the changes, I guess. So at that time, several of our grade levels were departmentalized. And one particular grade level, the principal changed immediately and went back to self-contained classrooms in that grade level. And so I asked him, why did you do that? And he said, well, we're getting a teacher that has for a few years now not seen growth in her students. Okay, so there's something not happening with her teaching. Even if the children are not up to grade level, you should still see growth, right? And he said, so I had to weigh in my mind, and it's like Sophie's Choice, if you've ever seen that movie. If I keep her in a self-contained classroom, she affects 20 students, okay? If I do departmentalized, and they were like 4 teachers, then whatever subject I give her to teach, she impacts 80 students. He said, so I had to make the tough choice of only impacting 20 students. And that, I mean, think about that. That's a rough choice as an administrator to have to make. That's because he knew that the teacher makes the difference. You make the difference. If you're not seeing growth in your kids, it is not their fault, it's yours. Okay, so you have to find a way to reach them. All right, so let's go, that's not gonna work. So let's go to the next one. These are good so far. All right, there is no one-size-fits-all method to teaching, and it's important to research evidence-based teaching methods to fit all of your learners. All right, what group is that? All right, expand.
I think that's what the textbook basically emphasized, the whole chapter. And I think it's really important that teachers know that to use the evidence-based teaching methods and not try to think that all of my students are going to understand this if I teach it this specific way all the time.
Yes, and each year is different. So I get pre-service teachers every year. Hey guys, you would think that I would teach the class the same way every semester that I teach it. I don't. Because first of all, there's new things that come along that I like to incorporate, but also you're different than the last 3370 class that I had. So I have to meet your needs. And so, yeah, that's good. Good thought. All right, next one. All teachers must ensure active involvement of the learner through the 9 best instructional strategies. Who put that? Okay.
We just kind of thought that it was something that's important for teachers to like keep in mind as they're like making like lesson plans or like developing instruction for students, because each of the strategies require like the learner to be like actively involved in whatever they're doing, and we just thought it was something that could be really effective in the classroom.
I agree. Actively involved. So I would hope that everyone that you have in the education department here at Florida Southern College does this, okay? However, I've heard that like in other departments, that you might go into a class, my son would tell me this, and the instructor reads from the PowerPoint the whole time, which is not good. There's not active involvement. Or maybe you've been at another college where that happened before. One of my sons went to a big college, 100 people in classroom, lecture hall, lectured the whole time. That's not active involvement. But the things that you've been doing, even today, with all your discussions, your consensus, you participated in this, the Kahoot, all of these things keep you active. So I hope that you're recognizing when you go into your education classes, think about how is my professor keeping me active in this learning situation? And it's not that we're getting you up and doing calisthenics. If you were 5, we would be up out of our seat and doing things all the time. But you know that the younger the child, the more movement they're going to have in the classroom. And COVID has been kind of weird with us on this. Julia?
I have a question. It's kind of off topic, but also on topic. So, when we're learning like evidence-based learning and stuff, like obviously like right now like, when we're in college, like these classes like can kind of be differentiated, but like our other classes, like it's like basically you're coming here, you gotta learn one thing, like it's not really like they don't really differentiate as much for like students. So like when is like, cause like obviously like they're going to school to get different degrees than us, so like when, like do they teach like to do like evidence-based like only in like elementary schools or like through like middle school and high school and college? Like when do they stop really like differentiating the classrooms to like?
Well, one thing, I think not a lot of college professors really have an educational
That's true.
background. So they don't take education classes where they're like, oh, we gotta do evidence-based teaching, or we gotta do, whole brain teaching. Like they don't have like that educational background that we're getting.
They don't at all.
Yeah.
So like your biology professors have never been to school to learn how to be a biology professor. They only know the content. So that's so funny you should say that, because we have what we call faculty forums every semester before it starts, and they do workshops for faculty to participate in. Education professors always are doing 2 to 3 of those. Like Dr. LaFrance and Mrs. Dr. LaFrance and I did this last one on active engagement pedagogies in the classroom. So we shared like Pear Deck, like this. We've shared Kahoot before. We shared like working together on a Google Drive within the classroom so you can share those things. We shared all sorts of strategies to help keep students involved. And I get emails every semester, wow, thank you for sharing that, I would have never known about that. You know, for us, we try to keep up with that stuff. You guys tell us a lot, you know, what you've discovered, and then we try to learn it. But we also have that mindset of, and now I've been in education now 34 years. I still have not arrived. I'm changing things up all the time. But I enjoy that. If I were to do the same thing I did 10 years ago, I'd be bored stiff. Julia?
This is kind of going back to answering my question. I know, like, for example, like in my English class, she doesn't really think that everybody, like, needs to be able to write a paper. She's like, if you're gonna go into, like, sports videos, like, whatever, like, then maybe making a video is best for you. So, like, for, like, it's like an English class, it's just like, you don't have to be able to write a paper. Like, you can make a video, you can make a podcast, do that. And, like, reminding me of all of these classes, because I know, like, for, like, example, like, our menu, like, we can choose, like, what we want to do.
Yes.
And she was doing that, but, like, she was like writing about how like no like real other like professors do that, and I was like telling her, like I was only education major of the class, and I was telling her like how like we're like learning to do that, like learning to do like different things to, like meet the needs of your students, and like it like blew her mind that like other people were like finally doing that, because she's like it never used to be that way. So I think it is learning, but like her like she didn't go to school to like learn to be an English professor, so she didn't learn those things.
Yeah.
She just does it because she sees that works for her students.
So she's done some research on her own.
But I think a lot of other professors don't necessarily have that.
I would say that's probably true. All right. All teachers must ensure active, we did that one. Be intentional with your strategies. Research to make sure they are evidence-based. Don't just use what you used or what you assume will work. Who did that one? What group? You guys? Okay. Expand on that.
I think, in the chapter and the video, it's kind of talking about some different like myths that people think would work, but are actually not evidence-based, like the smaller classroom sizes and things like that. So I think some of those were kind of obviously true, but some of them you would assume that it makes sense. If you think that having fewer students will be better, but that's not necessarily backed up. And so there are different things like that. So you have to make sure that what you're doing isn't just what your teachers did or what you saw and you're like, okay, I think that would work. That makes
Yes,
sense.
so what you've actually hit on something very, very important. So there is research to show, evidence-based research to show. Dan Lordy is the guy who did this. I know I've read his book, called The School Teacher. If you ever want to read a fascinating book, read that book. It was written in the 70s, but they have updates now in the 20s, I think. Anyway, he actually says there's evidence to show that many teachers actually, even though they go through a teacher prep program that shows them all these various ways to teach, they get in a rut and they go back to teaching the way they were taught. Don't you just want to smack your head against the wall then? We're trying to show you, you know, you may have been in great classes growing up, but we're trying to show you that there are ways to teach that you can make more of a difference than just getting up and showing information. And you have to be like that English teacher that Julia just talked about. Who is that, by the way?
Dr. Scholes, she teaches writing about graphic novels.
Okay, I'll have to figure out who she is. I don't know who that is, but be like her and say, you know what, I want to make a difference for my students. Let me look some things up. There's nothing wrong with starting with Google. Start with Google. It'll start to point you in the right direction, but don't get caught up in going to if Google points you to Pinterest, Pinterest has some cute ideas. Don't get me wrong. I use Pinterest for various things, mainly food, recipes, okay? But I don't let it dictate what I'm teaching. What you're teaching are the standards, and you have to have evidence-based practices to use in teaching those standards. If you eventually go to Pinterest and you find, hey, that really would go with the evidence-based teaching that I'm doing, then use it. But don't let Pinterest be your number one decision maker for you. You have to know what evidence-based strategies to use. All right, let's keep going. So now we're gonna do a poll everywhere. I didn't pull it up yet. So I took the effective strategies that group number 4 talked about, and I put it into 6. I kind of combined a few, and I want us to rank them as to what you feel are the most important for you as a teacher, in order of importance for teachers, okay? So I'm gonna pull up the poll everywhere. I gotta log in, because I totally forgot to do this. That's fine, I got it all ready. Activities.
While we're transitioning real fast.
Yes.
You said earlier, like, if the younger the student is, the more reading they have to do. I just watched a video of a teacher yesterday, and she was working with first graders, I think, and as they were walking to, like, the reading carpet, she said, we're gonna walk in syllables today.
Yes.
So she would say, like, lion, or lion, and then the students would say lion, and take 2 steps, and, like, do that until they got to their seat.
That is great.
Which was really cool.
All right, so I'm gonna present this. I activated it. So you're gonna go, here you go, to pollev.com, or they have an app. I don't know if any of you have the app, but you can do it on the app. pollev.com/LoriRake626, and you're gonna rank these. So for me, when I practiced this, it was on my phone, and it had me physically move the one I want to the top and arrange them, and then send it. Okay, so I'm gonna let you see how these play out in real time, but don't let them affect the way you rank yours. Let me know if you have difficulty with that. It's up at the top, pollev.com/LoriRake626. That's my account with them. I know, I had to do it too. So I almost had to think, is there a hierarchy? Do I have to do this before this happens? That's how I had to approach it. When you submit, it'll shift everything. It's starting to do some shifting now.
not submitted? So I can't tell on here. Thumbs up if you're good, if you've submitted. All right, I think we can look at it. Okay, so let's look at what you as a class thought about this. I would completely agree in my mind that direct and explicit instruction have to be number one. Because if you're not giving explicit instruction, you can engage students all day long, but it's not on the right stuff. So having active engagement has to be directly connected to your explicit instruction. So think about what we've done today. Everything has pointed to that goal of evidence-based instruction. That was our target for today. Okay, so everything is pointed to that. Active engagement, absolutely. And just like Kaylee was talking about, the younger the child, the more active engagement they need. So I have a kindergarten intern I told you about. She's excellent. I'm gonna have to show you a video of her. She's just great. She takes the evening classes. She was a para at one of the elementary schools for the past 3 years. So she's, acclimated with school, but she's just so good. She literally, so I was there for like an hour's lesson, and every 10 to 12 minutes, she moved the kids from the table to the carpet very smoothly. By the way, remember I told you there's 46 kids in this class. So moved them so smoothly back and forth and back and forth, and did hand motions and stuff with them, and they were doing something all the time because they're 5. You can't leave them on the carpet for 20 minutes. You've lost them. So she was trying to get, more active stuff. So the transitions help, but also her active engagement of using motions for definitions. And, when they were at the carpet, they don't have materials there, but she wanted them to practice writing the letter P. They were learning the sound and the letter P. They did air writing, and she directed them. She stood up front, goes straight down. Everybody do that. And they all went straight down. Go back to the top. Take away your pencil, go back. That explicit, how do you do it? They watched a video. They did all the exercise. They sang a song. They did all this stuff, all this multi-sensory stuff in this little bitty space of 46 kids. And then she transitioned them. That was the beautiful thing of blending the first two. So the first two really can be blended. Scaffolding instruction, I think that's important too. You have to put that in for your students that need that importance. And I'll show you, actually, do I have it on my phone? No, but I wanted to show you how she scaffolded the instruction. I will Friday. Opportunity to learn. That connects to our discussion we had a little bit ago about you can't have low expectations for your students, because that's where they're going to meet. They're going to go where you set the bar. And if you set it here, that's where they're going to go no further. You need to give, and every kid needs the opportunity to learn. So if my lower babies move to here and learn, that's fine, but my high kids need the opportunity to learn too. They don't need to be the ones that always help others. They need to be challenged. Organizing and activating knowledge. So that's like bringing that background in and using graphic organizers and things that help students separate things from brain, building success. I like as a class how we did this. Yours may look a little bit different, but I think that as a class, that was a really good way to organize them. All right, back to where we are going. Okay, so I want you to take a moment and reflect on the strategies of effective teaching. So I want you to think about, what do you do well? What do you need to better develop? And how will you better develop these strategies? What resources can you use? What things can you do to help you develop those things that we just saw in the list that you ranked? Okay? I'm going to put that list up again, and I want you to physically write, either by hand or on your computer, get a document, and I want you to answer these three questions. What do you do well of the 6 that I'm going to put up there? What do you need to better develop? What area do you need to grow in? And how, so set a goal for yourself. What am I gonna do to help me develop those? Okay, do well, what do you need to develop? All right, so I'm gonna go back to the poll everywhere. There you go. I'll make it big again so you can see it.
What was the third question?
How are you going to develop those? So if I say, I need to really work on how to scaffold instruction, I can say that all day long, but unless I act on that and go, okay, how am I gonna do that? I need to read some things. I need to watch some videos on how teachers scaffold instruction. I need to, when I go into field studies this semester, I need to take notes on how the teacher scaffolds instruction so that I can do that in my classroom. Okay, so what do you do well? What do you need to work on, and how will you work on that this semester? So we know that these are the evidence-based effective strategies to use. So we know that this is what we have to use in the classroom. You find your strength and you build on it. You find an area to grow and you develop a plan to grow. Take about 2 more minutes to finish that up. And I have one more thing to show you.
your attention for a minute and let me show you something that I did for you, and you need to always keep these places in mind. So right underneath the video, it's on Canvas. It says evidence-based literacy strategies. So there are a couple more of these, but I put the two that are probably used most often. These two websites are actually evidence-based strategies. And the first one in particular, readingrockets.org. So they are very in tune to literacy. Of course, the name of it is Reading Rockets. But if you look at here, you're going to find some of the major components of reading. Let's say your children need work in phonics. You go to phonics, look, it has all of these things. So here's a strategy: alphabet matching, matching books to phonics features. You could go there and it'll tell you, what the strategy is. Looking at comprehension, maybe we need, question, answer, response, a reading guide, story maps. All of these things are research-based, and if you click on them, like I'll click on story maps, it will actually give you some graphic organizers, different kinds. Look at the templates it has. So much information right here at this website. The other website is the Florida Center for Reading Research, FCRR, and I put it right on, it comes out of Florida State University, and I put it right on the Student Center activities so that you can read that, but then you can go up here and look at the grade levels: pre-kindergarten, kindergarten and first, second and third. So if I click on second and third, look, it gives me all of these things that I can click on for research-based strategies in every area. And if you click on them, here's letter sound correspondence. It literally gives you materials you're gonna need, the activities, and at the end, you can print this stuff and use it yourself. So these are the research-based strategies, especially in the area of literacy, that you need to be using. Because we know that the evidence shows that these things work. Okay? Questions, comments? Did you learn about yourself today? I want you to learn about yourself every day. So evidence-based strategies, your strengths, where you need to grow. On Friday, we're going to dig into UDL. I'm actually going to show you the new lesson plan template, how UDL kind of goes into that, different things that are part of universal design for learning. So hopefully you'll understand that a lot better. All right. Remember to prepare yourself for the class on Friday. We'll also talk about what's coming due. Have a great rest of your day.
You have that? Me?
I'm glad.
I'm glad.
Wait, that's nice. Thanks for the email. I'm interviewing with the son.
I know. Well, we got an email, and I usually just send it to my classes. Emily actually worked when we were in Ed. She had that job.
Yeah.
She can tell you.
So what is it? What do you do?
So pretty much like answer phone calls if a professor needs something copied, you'll copy, make copies. It's pretty simple.
And there's there's downtime, so you can really do homework. You just have to, if something comes in, you have to stop what you're doing and
Yeah, and do that
the
first.
work comes first, but then there's downtime, so you'll answer the phone. It's like a receptionist type thing.
I worked as a receptionist for a long time, all of high school.
Oh, well, that will help, tell her
Yeah,
that.
yeah, and it was nice there because I had downtime to do my homework and like you said,
Yes.
and I got a phone call.
Yes.
So brilliant.
Perfect.
Yeah, thank you so much.
You're welcome. I've been there.
We run sometimes at Domino's Park.
Yeah.
And so I was thinking about doing some observations there. I didn't know if you had like any information. I just emailed the principal.
So
But
Dr. Powell does have a couple connections there because she sat on their school advisory council for a little while. So ask her. Sure. We used to have a student that taught there, but she doesn't teach there anymore, so I don't know who's there.
I've heard it's kind of rough.
Well, it's
But
yeah. I mean, it's not, it's just, the students are low income. You know, they don't always come prepared, but a lot of whole counties like that. So, except for our magnet, your choice schools. So,
I'm excited for it.
it would be a good experience for
I
you.
know some people are doing their field studies there,
Oh, yeah.
so I'm excited for it. I
Good.
also, like, one thing that I did put in my reflection just now is
Uh-huh.
that I just realized, like, I have zero classroom experience. Like, I haven't taken field studies yet, and all of my observations last year for fall and spring have been YouTube videos, and so I feel like that's just my thing.
So field studies 1 needs to be next semester.
Yeah, it
For sure.
definitely is.
Have you passed the GKT?
I'm taking it,
Okay.
scheduled for the winter,
Okay.
so,
Yeah, I mean, you need to move quickly on your field studies.
yeah. Yeah, I'm definitely gonna take it next semester and then probably next fall, the second one,
Right.
and then try to get it done as soon as I can.
That's good. We're gonna get in the classroom a little bit to work with some students,
Yeah,
you know, at the latter half of this semester.
yeah.
Alrighty.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Five was attention.
Good morning. Good morning.